there's this call out to say that if you can't make me feel cared for, you can't possibly expect me to care for someone else. Listen, we all have the same value no matter who you are and what your title is. And if you think that I'm just going to respect you just because of what your title is, you got another thing coming. So I think that is playing out in terms of culture to say that if you don't make me feel cared for in the value and the sense of who I am, nor do you, if you fail to create these environments for me to feel a part of something bigger than myself, then you can expect for me to walk with my feet.
It's time for another episode of Campus Confidential.
It is.
How you feeling, Loren?
Very good. I love this episode, and I was almost ready to apply for a job with either one of these two.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think in the end, we were all going to go work for one of them.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
Sure.
You're going to go to work with Mary, but she was actually going to go work with Mordecai. So
yeah, she's not going anywhere, but he's pretty impressive. So
yeah, they both were. Yeah.
Today we are in conversation with two campus individuals to talk about well-being, right? So this idea of what's happening around wellness and well-being on college campuses and a lived experience.
Right.
So we had Dr. Mordecai Brownlee and Mary Janz. It was a fun one. So why don't you give us some background on each of those, Loren?
Yeah. Well, Mary is the Executive Director of Housing and Residence Life and also has responsibility for fraternity and sorority life at Marquette University, where she's been, by the way, for 31 years. So she has a long tenure at the university. That's a private Catholic Jesuit University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for those of you who may be unfamiliar. She's also, I know Mary because she's been a pretty significant leader in ACUHO-I, which is the Housing and Residence Life Association. She's been on the Board of Trustees. She was chair of the foundation board, and she's been awarded the Parthenon Award. She's part of the Parthenon Society, and this is the most prestigious award that ACUHO-I gives. It recognizes achievement in the profession and outstanding service. So she's really quite an accomplished leader and been at Marquette for a very long time. And then our other guest was Dr. Mordecai Brownlee, who is the 6th president of the Community College of Aurora, Colorado. He's been there since 2021, and the college has 9,000 students. It's been around 40 years. He helped us understand it's the most diverse community college in the state of Colorado. He's previously been at Alamo College's district in Texas, where he's a VP for student success. He was faculty at the University of Charleston, at Morgan State University, and Lamar University. And he's been recognized nationally in lots of ways, including the U.S. Department of Education named him a champion for unlocking career success among college students. So great guests and a lot of fun.
So much fun. And unlocking career success, I think that came out loud and clear from a president's lens. I think he is setting the standard for the future of college presidents. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. A refreshing take on things, very candid about his views on higher education and the moment we're in. In fact, he called this, I think he called it a new era for higher education. And that wasn't just some hyperbole. He was saying it is time. In fact, he said it's past time for this new era. We need to forget some of the old ways and live into the new era. So I agree, refreshing and really setting the stage for presidents.
And then Mary, I think, right, her commitment to the university and to the housing, not only system, but experience, and then the employees that are doing the work, you could just sense
you can feel it.
What she brings to the table, right? Every day.
I loved that she actually asked her staff before we recorded, what do you need to feel like you have a healthy experience here as an employee? I mean, so she was, I love that she sort of used the episode as a reason to talk with staff, or the staff as a way to inform the episode, whatever. She's engaged with her staff, and she talked about her staff saying that they need candor as much or maybe more than transparency from leaders. So, that was great. They clearly have a candid relationship.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in and hear the candor that they bring to the conversation. Here we go. Another episode of Campus Confidential. I'm here with some fabulous people. Loren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing, I was going to use the word Mary just used, but I won't. I'm doing really well.
Excellent.
Really well.
All right, we're going to leave it like that for you. Let's go to Mary. Mary, how are you doing today?
Today I am doing splendid. It's crisp, it's sunny, and it's no longer windy and rainy.
Oh, that is amazing. Mordecai, tell us how you're doing.
I am doing well. We're enjoying this beautiful, beautiful snowfall in Colorado, and super excited to be with you all this morning.
Fantastic.
Beautiful as in how much snowfall?
So much that we've had to have a snow day, and now we're on a remote day. So we're going to try to figure out how to climb out of this.
Well, the good news is in Denver, it'll probably be 80 degrees and sunny tomorrow, and it'll all melt real fast, right?
Exactly.
Well, our friends on the West Coast, at least some of my friends, love when we talk about weather. So maybe we should keep talking about weather. No, I'm just kidding. So kind of remind our listeners, we're on this mini series of sorts, if you will, from our study with our friends at Akuhoai, NERSA, and SCUP around employee satisfaction. And this next segment of episodes will be focused on well-being. And so we have Mary and Mordecai here as campus folks experiencing the day-to-day to talk to us about well-being. And before we jump into it, I wanted to set the stage between the difference of wellness and well-being. And I'm only going to do it at a high level, but I think as we continue the conversation, I think it's really important for us to think about the difference between the two, because we've talked about wellness for a long time. And when we think about wellness, our friends at NERSA remind me and have done some great work around wellness being about the individual. How is the individual showing up? How are they taking care for themselves? And this conversation around well-being moves us into systems, right? System-based well-being and focus on the whole person, the whole education experience, the whole institution, and the whole community. So we're really excited to engage with you all about the systems of well-being and what that looks like for you and how you're contributing to it. So Loren, before we jump into the first question, is there a stat or something from the study that we want to make sure we bring to life before?
Yeah, sure. Maybe it's worth saying to our listeners that you certainly can go back and perhaps should look at the research that's on the LinkedIn page and the website. And there are a couple of episodes, the February 19th and March 4th episodes get into this more deeply. But let me just offer a couple of things that maybe add some context for today's conversation. First of all, recall that the research that we did showed career satisfaction in higher education is down 27% in 5 years, still above 50%, but a big precipitous drop. We want to understand what's causing that. Our survey respondents said that the negative environment attributes include the big two were non-transparent communication and lack of accountability. And only 22% of respondents said that they feel the institution is preparing them for supervision, how to supervise people, particularly as workforces change. Half of them want more training. On the other hand, I want to do the glass half full stuff too. 75% of the respondents report feeling supported by their direct manager. So there's some good things in this environment and these systems that we need to exacerbate and lift up. 86% report positive working relationships are the top attribute of their job, and 69% enjoy the work culture. So it occurs to me as you were talking, Kelsey, about wellness and well-being that we certainly have talked a lot about that with regard to students, but we need to pay as much attention to employee well-being and belonging and all of the sort of things, the characteristics that make for really healthy workplaces too. So I'm also really excited to have both Mary and Mordecai with us today, and hopefully those stats tee up a little bit for the conversation. But it might be worth, maybe just starting, Mary and Mordecai, to ask each of you, how are you thinking about the workplace right now, higher education workplace? How would you describe the sentiment that you're experiencing or seeing or paying attention to in higher education with the workforce right now? Maybe Mary, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Mordecai.
Sure. I loved your definition of well-being because at this Jesuit institution, we oftentimes talk about cura personalis, which is care for the whole person. And so that's always sort of at the forefront of what we do. But I would say as I look around our campus, I think there's some feelings of uncertainty, particularly as for the last few years, we've heard about the enrollment cliff, and you've seen campuses close, and you've seen rifts happening across college and university campuses. I think folks that are still here from time to time feel stretched thin, maybe fighting and scrapping for resources. And I think sometimes we sense this changing of responsibilities as people exit jobs, and yet there's still some expectation that that workload continues. But I believe at the heart of it, I still see passion for the work, love for the students, a desire to want to make this be a place where you learn both in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
Yeah, that's good. So you're still experiencing some hope and optimism despite the challenges everybody's facing.
I think so. I think we see some of that, right? But we're not blind to the idea that there are some challenges that are facing higher ed as a whole.
Yeah, good. Mordecai, how about you? What's your description of the sentiment? What are you seeing?
One of the things that, and we've been discussing this for quite some time in higher education, that we knew disruption was on the horizon. The pandemic only essentially sped up that clock, and it exposed what I thought were many challenges that institutions were already experiencing, but it also brought to light the lack of resourcing for institutions that perhaps needed it the most. I think we're watching that play out now as this full first fiscal year with the emergency funds that were provided to institutions around the country no longer being accessible. And so it's interesting to watch this play out with many institutions now as they do not have gap coverage of what was lost revenues for them in their respective communities. But I will tell you, in terms of the sentiments at our campus, we have done the best job that we could possibly do regarding bringing to light that disruption was going to be occurring. We are leaning deeply into purpose work. What is our purpose as educators? And I have stated numerous times in open forums to the college that we want to now more than ever do our part to support our academic community in discovering what their purpose is. And what does that look like? What do your passions look like? Are there some other ways in which we should be serving students? How we should be supporting them, right? You can't support our students and you don't have what you need as an educator. And we talk frequently about that. So disruption, discovering purpose. We've also had some internal assessments that we've run as well to determine not only the belongingness of our students, but the belongingness of our educators as a measure to help us understand where folks are on their current wellness and well-being.
So you've actually surveyed employees on belongingness too?
We have.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it has been very instrumental. We've done that as a bit of a triangulation. We've done the closed sessions, private sessions, but also survey information. And we've even done what's called staying interviews. What is it that would cause for you to stay? You want to stay in the space. What would continue to have you engage in this space? And it has allowed for us to be able to put a lot of data together to make some shifts in our internal working environment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you've done or shifted based on the data, or where are you at in that process?
Absolutely. We've done a significant amount. I will tell you that one of the changes that we've made that we see to be an immediate permanent reality for us is the college wanted to know, were we going to be forcing this return back to campus? We all knew hybrid and remote work was normalized during the pandemic, but this feeling of those that said, hey, I really appreciate this working environment. I still want opportunities for community building and to connect with others. What could this look like? And so we have now hardlined that into our workflow. And we have strong integrations now of 2-3 or 3 2-day splits of remote working, hybrid working opportunities. Some of the positions that historically we didn't see being remote opportunities, now we certainly do. Shared workspaces as well. It was a request of our team members that they wanted hoteling space, but they wanted shared working space as well to bring a deeper sense of community. We've made those shifts and changes. In terms of the wellness package, the wellness of our team members, we've really integrated mental health into our packages and have created some different communities, employee communities, as well, to support them, and have looked at changing our benefits package as well to include some resourcing that we previously did not have. And to be quite honest, our state is a bit challenged with some of those resources. So we have privately contracted with some entities as a college to provide those as part of a benefit package.
That's amazing. And I think it's leading in the sense of higher education. I feel like there's still that question for a lot of folks of what does the work day, week look like? Mary, folks can't see you because we're sharing audio, but video wise, it looks like you might be working from home today. So I'm interested at a 4-year institution, kind of, have you all done anything in that space or had conversations?
Yeah, we really have. I think what we became so obvious during the pandemic when we were working from home, we were still student facing, right, in residence life. And so we still had students after we shut down 4 years ago and then reopened in that fall. We needed to have folks on campus. We needed staff in the residence halls and in university owned apartments. But there were days, we also had limitations placed on us by our medical team, like no more than 2 people in the office on any given day. And so we began to realize that there were certain members of my team that I never saw in person. And you lose track of all the water cooler conversations where business can get done because it's in your mind at the moment you have this wonderful conversation that leads to something else. So as a university, we have moved to 4 days in the office, 1 day remote. Fridays are an easy day for me to do remote because I can do projects like this, work on budget, things where I'm not interrupted. But we have limited that. We have 3 days a week where the entire department is in the office together. So we can meet in person, we can see one another, we can set up meetings. If something comes up, we know that we can find one another. And I think that 1 day a week is helpful. I think, Mordecai, they'd probably prefer the 3-2 that you have. But at the moment, we're looking at a 4-1. But it does at least afford some opportunity to say, I can get a whole lot of work done at home when somebody's not knocking on my door, coming back or popping in, or phone calls that are coming in regularly, rather more thoughtfully when they want to transfer a call to me. So I think we've seen some of that as well on campus.
It sounds like the hybrid, the flex, the high flex kinds of work environments, clearly that's with us now, and you've both spoken to that. And it sounds like, please correct me if I'm wrong, that's come up as something staff and faculty have asked for. What is it you have for their well-being? I am assuming this is sort of makes for a healthy work environment, a more positive work environment. What are the things you have found that you've had to change as leaders to adapt to that and to manage that and to create, because of that change, the kinds of conditions that you really want to see? You started to go there a little bit, Mary, with, well, I don't have the water cooler anymore. But what have you as leaders had to adapt to as people have asked for that for their own well-being, or modified even to achieve what you want to achieve?
I'll tell you that I think that the what needed to be adapted to is the understanding that higher education, in my opinion, has gotten over the years very rooted in how it did things. This sense of, we talked about innovation, but innovation was only, I think, seen through the lens of academic program creation,
research,
and research for research institutions. I think the integrations of new technologies were seen as innovation. And I think that now higher education is at a point in this journey where it's having to truly innovate how it serves and the manner in which it's providing service. But now I think there's a deeper scope to this. It's not just outwardly facing educators to students, but it's the institutions to its educators. And that's where I think the true innovation and transformation is happening. I think over the next few years, this is going to play out as educators walk with their feet to determine where they're going to be serving the various sectors and where they will be serving in the country. And I think that it will serve to be another level of disruption because they will choose to serve in spaces that are truly serving them as they seek to serve.
And Mordecai, before you jump in, I'd like you to take the chance to define educators from your lens, because some people might hear the word educators and we have a default, maybe bias of what an educator is. So I'd love to hear your definition.
I appreciate that call out, Kelsey. I will tell you, I am someone who believes And we have this culture at the Community College of Aurora that everyone that serves students, no matter their capacity as an educator, that can be someone who's in the classroom teaching, that can be someone who is providing student life admission services, someone who is working in facilities, someone who's a groundkeeper, anyone that is sowing a seed and making a service and sacrifice into that institution towards the advancement of our students in our community, we define as an educator.
So if I could just jump in too, I think I have a lot of entry-level staff reporting through me. So first professional jobs, post-master's degrees, sometimes with a bachelor's degree, and they're also frontline staff. Loren, like residence life isn't Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost 365 days a year. And so I think, first of all, during the pandemic, the first lesson that we learned, because we were rooted in what was always done, was a 2-hour department meeting is not going to work when you see 25 people on a screen trying to hold their attention. So how do you get down to brass tacks? What's enough for the rationale that they need to understand decisions? What's important? What do we need now versus what do we need 6 weeks from now? And really mapping that out. And I think some of that has come forward, even though we're back together in the same room. We don't need to talk about things ad nauseum, but we still need to be able to provide rationale and an understanding and an opportunity to ask questions and to disagree, to figure out how to move forward. But I think as I'm thinking of those young entry-level professionals, well-being overall is really at the forefront of their mind as well. And so they're asking for it, and I think we have to be able to meet them there. I just finished co-chairing a group for Akuhoai on the future of the profession, and our specific segment was on workforce sustainability. And if we're going to keep thinking the way we've always thought, we're going to lose really good, talented young professionals, and we're going to discourage them from staying in our profession. So understanding that well-being and wellness is important to them, understanding when they hit a hurdle that may be nothing for us, it is overwhelming for them. So crafting some time for them to step away from work to recover, to come back in, to be fully ready to engage. Those are some of the things that I think are really kind of pointing as changes since I entered the profession.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking as you two were talking that although there may be some in our industry in higher education who think of well-being as the soft sort of emergent thing you have to pay a lot of attention to, you're talking about it really as an imperative for how higher ed thinks about itself as a recruitment and retention vehicle. And I was telling Kelsey just a little bit ago, I had coffee yesterday with a friend of mine who does quite a bit of labor work, union labor kind of work with higher education, and was indicating that a number of labor unions, and not just entry-level employees, representing entry-level employees, are asking for well-being things in contracts now. So yes, salaries and length of service, this kind of thing, but also food pantries, childcare, flexibility in the workplace. So in putting these two things together, but the conversation I had yesterday, I was sharing with Kelsey, and what you're talking about really become an imperative for a stable and thriving workforce. I suppose that's my opinion, and if you have a reaction, I'd love it. But that's what I was thinking as you were talking.
Yeah, I do think that that's what we need to be able to attend to. And I appreciate Mordecai's view. I'm not always certain that folks, as you move up the chain, are that in tune to what you might be needing to keep a university or a college running on a day-to-day basis. You're going to need those entry-level folks that are going to be spending time with students, helping hold their hands through challenging situations, addressing and confronting and being first on site.
That leads me to, I think that's a great point, Mary. And Mordecai, I have appreciated getting to know you briefly, but in your role as president, how are you, I think it is systematically, in my mind, how are you systematically taking what you're saying, this idea of purpose, engagement, everyone being an educator, and infusing that throughout the whole community? Like, how do you do that from your lens, sitting in the seat that you're in?
I will tell you that I learned years ago that systems will only do what they're designed to do. And it has amazed me that those that have are in significant roles of responsibility that have oversight of the livelihoods of others, the wellness, the well-being of others, that they don't delve deeper into what that responsibility requires. And I think that we're reaching a point to where I would say today's new era of higher education and the future of higher education will require those that are more intentional with the systems that they are creating, understanding that I think that now more than ever in the history of higher education in our country, in the United States, that we're going to have to determine relevance in the marketplace. This idea that you don't necessarily have to walk through our doors in order to achieve success. It was a story that was told for a number of years. It was true for a number of years. But our question now, as we look at my children, Gen Alpha, as we think about the students that are now walking up and down our hallways and entering the workforce and capturing a significant market share of the new workforce in Gen Z. And then you've got my generation as millennials, who are now the number one generation in the workforce. There's this call out to say that if you can't make me feel cared for, you can't possibly expect me to care for someone else. And this idea of value, I think that positionality as well is totally being disrupted, which I have been waiting for this moment in time, where it's not about your title. I can care
You've been
less.
looking for it, right?
Oh, I've been waiting for it. I can't tell you, Kelsey and Loren and Mary, there's meetings that in certain conferences I just refuse to go to because it just turns into a show and a stage for posturing and positionality plays and power plays. Listen, we all have the same value no matter who you are and what your title is. And if you think that I'm just going to respect you just because of what your title is, you got another thing coming. So I think that is playing out in terms of culture to say that if you don't make me feel cared for in the value and the sense of who I am, nor do you, if you fail to create these environments for me to feel a part of something bigger than myself, then you can expect for me to walk with my feet. And I think that all of this is creating this new culture of in the classroom, out the classroom, institutional culture that's going to play out for a number of years.
Mordecai, I asked my staff, you sent those questions in advance, and I just posed some of the questions to my staff, and I asked, what would help improve your well-being here? And they talked about oftentimes people, they feel a connection to their supervisor, they feel a connection and support from their department, but they have that disconnect when they reach outside of that, when they reach above it. And they said, the buzzword I think now is transparency, but they were like, what they need more than transparency is candor. They want to know even the challenging things. Don't give me the company line. Don't try to smooth it over, or don't try to, switch the narrative. Just be candid with me. Put it out there for me. Help me understand it. Give the time. And then the other thing they said is they oftentimes hear people at an advanced, maybe more senior level on campus saying, I don't really understand what you do. And so the challenge was, come talk to me, come meet me, come see what I do, come learn what I do. Don't just make assumptions about what I do. See some of the challenges, see some of the joys that I have. So I do think position doesn't really matter. But if your position is a big one and the little people don't feel valued by the big one, boy, that's going to be a problem coming down the road.
The narrative crafting is, I think, now more than ever, what people find to be a bit of a turnoff. This feeling that you have prepared a message for me, yet you won't be honest with me. And I think that also is a part of this transition of people really feeling as though they're being cared for. And I think, I shared this with the college. We shouldn't take an action or make a decision, and I cannot explain the why. And everyone should understand the why behind the action, so they truly have a sense of what we're doing. I think the other accountability of that is, I think that too many institutions have gotten further and further away from their actual institutional mission. And every decision, every environment that they create should be a representation of their institutional mission.
I was thinking as you were saying that too, that this is a work relationship, not a romantic relationship, but how can I feel cared for if I don't trust what you tell me? So really what you're getting at is, I think what our colleagues are saying is we want to have candor, and candor tells me that you trust me with the information. And then I'm probably more open to both receiving and reciprocating the kind of care we need then ultimately for the students. that we're all here to serve. I mean, it's just it sounds so it is profound. It sounds complicated, but at the end
Right.
of the,
it's at the end of the day, it's simple.
It's a relationship. Yeah.
Well, and Loren, your point of, I think you just said we're not in a romantic relationship. That's what I heard you say.
Just want to be clear for the listeners.
Okay, this is very clear. But I do think, going back to where some of this conversation started, is we are in purpose-driven work.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of trust, being cared for, and believing in the purpose of what we're doing is really where we go back to the basics, and where the people will stay. They're committed and they're in it and they want to do the work, but when they feel that disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about one other thing that we've kind of grouped into well-being is the concept of burnout. So I think we've talked a lot about, what is well-being, all of that, but burnout is another thing that we have new employees coming in that we want to keep excited and connected to the purpose. But one thing we found in the survey is that majority of our respondents have worked in higher education, I think, for 10 years or more.
Yeah. Yep.
We're at a director level or higher, and they were feeling less satisfied than ever before. And it feels a little like it comes back to this burnout place. So Mary, Mordecai, do you all have thoughts on that experience?
And most of them, by the way, have graduate degrees, so they committed themselves educationally to pursuing this. It didn't fall into it and stay 10 years. They said, I'm going to go spend some time and money because this is my choice. So yeah, well-educated, seasoned, and at reasonably high levels.
I think it goes back to one of those early statements that I made, that in times of when staff are being cut, your responsibilities change and people are still feeling maybe an increased scrutiny over that. We oftentimes hear, we're not expecting you to do more with less, but we also don't get permission to let things go. So in essence, with fewer people, you are doing more with less, and you sometimes are chasing your tail. I think what I've noticed as a shift in the housing profession is really becoming more conscious of my work time, particularly for those live-in staff members. When I first started, they were like gung-ho, like, this is my building. I want to be called if there's something that's happening, and I only want to use the on-call person if I'm not in the building. And now it's like, I want to be able to go home from work at 4:30 or 5, and I'm going to trust my colleague to manage things in my building and update me. I'll get that tomorrow morning when I come in to work. So I think paying a little more attention to that may help with the burnout. But I do think as numbers are shrinking in terms of people doing the work, it stands to reason that there are folks feeling like there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders to keep the wheels spinning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll jump in there. Thank you for that, Mary. I two things that stick out for me. I think that care and how care is viewed. It's one thing, and I think that in the former era of higher education allowed for care to be an emotion. Do you feel cared for? Very different than I think that where we are now and where we're headed, that care is a actual hardline infrastructure that is provided. How we care for you, and in being an infrastructure, this separation between understanding well-being and wellness, and I think that's very profound. And I thank you all for taking the time to unpack that, because that also has played a significant role. I came up through student affairs as well, and it broke my heart watching institutions treat certain of its team members, employees, its educators, as though they were expendable. We need you to go out there, and we need you making the sacrifices, so we'll stay inside and you all go out there and put your life on the line so we can still keep the lights on for you, and we're going to give you an attaboy and hope that you stay alive in the process. And so I think that there were those that were watching that play out in the culture of their institutions, and that left a profound impact of making them feel and believe that they're not cared for. I think the other part of this coin that I'll hurry up and quickly say that I am one that believes that for the past 20, maybe 25 years, maybe before then, higher education has continued to do these patch jobs. Where we are now, it's a very disruptive moment. I think that this moment was needed years ago, but what we've done is we've initiative ourselves to death. And so we really treated our institutional cultures like they were technical, on the ground warehouse jobs where it was technically driven, churn, make, create, do better. And these systems were reaching this point to where they were only speeding up to a brick wall. They were no longer relevant, but the people were being pressed upon to create in a system that truly needed to be redesigned. And I think that a lot of folks have caught on to that and says, you know what, if you don't care for me, if you don't care for yourself and you're not going to create a more relevant environment, I got to find some place where I can find my own happiness.
Yeah, that's right. One of the next steps recommendations we put out there was consider paying less people more and focus effort on the most impactful work. And it was funny because some of the feedback was like, did we say that right? It's like, yeah, pay less people more and focus on the impactful work. Because the idea of, Mary, your point of more with less is it's just not an option anymore.
Might be less.
And probably should have never been an option, but we all just did it.
Right. Exactly. We just all took it on for so long, right?
Mm-hmm. Let me ask a practical question. So you are both in the kinds of roles that have stress associated in emergencies and crises. You're living through a snowstorm right now, Mordecai, in Colorado, and Mary, of course, things happen in residence halls in the fraternity sorority world that present real crises. What do you do to maintain well-being for yourselves? And how do you encourage people, the folks that you most depend on in these kinds of crises, how do you encourage their well-being? What are some practical things our listeners could use from your own experiences?
So we've had a couple of situations just since last April. We had a student pass away in one of the residence halls of natural causes at the age of 19. That's hard for young staff and young residence hall directors to understand how this can happen, and that really took a toll on the staff. This just before the holidays, just some silly antics, but a student lit off what was a commercial grade firework in the room, lit it, thought he could put it out, couldn't, tried to throw it out the window, and it exploded. So again, another fairly horrific scene, but really challenging situation for young staff that are there right on scene. So I think first and foremost, it was helping them get through that moment, kind of walking that journey with them. We talk about position. It didn't matter what my position was. I was up and with them till 2:00 in the morning as we were managing this, and as a university trying to manage it through a Teams call as well. With the student death, I actually got out of bed, went down to campus, sat with that with the student's roommate, worked with the student's roommate's parents, waited till we could get connected with the student who had passed away, their parent. And I think in some respects, I try to take what I can off of their shoulders and manage the things that may be overwhelming, but let them in to the extent that they want to be, so they can kind of shadow, they can see. I provide updates. And then we really look to make sure that we gave them some comp time away, some time where they could step away from the role. We could carry on with their responsibilities. They could take a couple of days, figure out, surround themselves with people that were supportive to them. I think the question for me is, sometimes I think maybe my personality, I really would, when I feel needed, when I know that I'm needed, that's probably when I'm in my very best to be able to shepherd somebody through a really difficult time. And it can catch up with you, but, I have a fantastic husband. I've got 4 great kids that I can step away from. I'm an avid person that walks, rides the bike, does a Zumba class to kind of relieve the frustration and the stresses. And I've really surrounded myself with a community outside of work, which I think is so important to the people that work on a college campus, whether you live in or live out. Finding that community that provides objectivity to your life is extraordinarily important.
Yeah. And the Gallup organization talks about well-being in 5 buckets, 5 categories: career, social, financial, physical, and community. And I think I heard you sort of talking through some of those different categories as you went on. How about you, Mordecai, the kinds of things that you do for your own well-being and to assure, particularly in stressful times, your colleagues experience that?
I would just tell you, Lauren, that in my journey thus far, I've worked for some interesting presidents and environment, and I made some promises to myself that when I became president, what I was going to do and what I was not going to do. I think that it is very important to create the kind of environment that people look forward to wanting to come to and serve at. Now, practically, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago is we instituted wellness time for every employee that we have at the college, and I do my best to model that. We have a pathway, a walk pathway that extends beyond 50 miles. It interconnects our communities here in the Denver metro area, and so I host several walks on the back pathway during the middle of the workday. You want to come and talk to me? We can talk, but we're not going to talk work. We going to talk, but we're not going to talk work. And you can come out there and we put on some shoes and have a good time. We've also instituted bring your animal to work days. So sometimes I'll bring my doggy in there and the other folks, and you can bring your cat, you can bring whatever you got, as long as it won't snap at somebody.
Cats and dogs.
But the cats, dogs, birds, we've had them all. Snakes is up for discussion. But bring your animal to work day. We have those as well. And then we always do a parade of the animals that came for that particular day. It's a great opportunity to connect. Some of the other things that we've done as well too is that we've really created the kind of culture that says that we do not do silos. We do not do this us versus them. I still can't stand that. We talk about inclusion, yet we will create these communities within our institutions that some of the most championed inclusive spaces turn out to be very exclusive. And so we've just kind of created the culture that I believe that we're still growing and it's evolving at our campus to say that we call out when we begin to see that behavior, because it is far against what it is that we say that we do. And I think that we've done a good job of that. So we're getting there. We're getting better. But prioritizing wellness, prioritizing creating communities where people bring a sense of themselves into that space. The other thing that's really big for us, and I'll say, is children. We've created the kind of environment. We have different kid zones in all of our buildings and certain departments where children are championed to be present. Understanding, I was raised by a single mother myself, and there were times when my mother could not, she was an educator, special education, K-12 educator, and there were times where she couldn't find a babysitter. So what she would do is work out with the principal to sit me in the back of the class. And that's how to this day I still call her teacher mommy. And so I just bring that out to say that, bring your children. 2 children. I have a 9 to 6-year-old. I've even designed the office to where my children after school can come in and do their homework right there with me. It's okay if folks see them on a Zoom call. It's just, this has to be the kind of space that is going to promote individuals being the wholeness of who they are and being able to serve others and find purpose in it.
Yeah, I'd also add too that one of the things that we've been doing for a few years is we have 2 weeks that are lovingly referred to as the gift of time. And one of those is the weeks between Christmas Eve and New Year's Day. And the other is the week of the 4th of July, where the university shuts down. People are still paid. They don't have to take vacation. You don't come back to a inbox of 500 emails because everybody has been off and not working. And you can, obviously not everybody, right? We still need our police force. We still need our facilities staff around, but they also get that week as well to kind of step back. And to your walking, we have a president that's a runner. And so he's got a run club. And I would also really shout President Lovell out in terms of some of the difficult, challenging times when that student passed away. He came to the services that we set up on campus. He spoke with each sets of parents. He joined me in meeting with the staff who faced some of this and took some hard feedback from the staff. And so I think that's also a way to say that I matter on campus, right? If the president is going to ride alongside me from time to time, can't do it all the time. I understand that. But when you choose those things wisely, I think that effort goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, we are at time, and I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us here, Kelsey especially. You've helped us understand what a moment this is. I think you might have referred to it, Mordecai, as a new era for higher education, and Mary, for helping us understand it's not merely transparency, but candor that sometimes our colleagues are looking for, and the importance of infrastructure. You talked about that, Mary, with these gifts of time. And Mordecai, you were referencing that it's not merely an act of caring, but the infrastructure which expresses that care. So I think what you've done here today has been great recruiters for your institutional cultures and employees.
I feel like we're getting employees coming to.
I might come back to higher ed. Yeah.
Did you try that once?
Job. I did. Yeah, I did, and it was great. But it's just clear that you're doing everything that you can to create the kinds of environments that are happy and healthy and constructive and productive for your colleagues at your institution. So thanks for what you're doing there. Thanks for your time today. We're really, really grateful for you helping us and our listeners know how to create those kinds of environments.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, me as well. Thank you.
It's time for some extra credit.
Okay.
I will say, so one thing Mordecai said was systems will do what they are set up to do. And I was like, oh, preach. So it made me think we're both in roles where we are kind of our own
solopreneur
person system of one.
Yeah.
So what systems do you have set up in your life and your new role?
For well-being?
Yeah. Or that are working, that aren't working? Do you have any systems?
I usually punch in about 11:30, have lunch about 12. I'm done by 2. I mean, is that what you mean?
If only that was true.
Yeah, I know, right? I know too many airports.
I mean, I think there's systems of, when you're on the road, what does that look like for you versus when you're home? How do you care for yourself? How do you take care of your wellness and well-being?
Well, yeah, that's really good. And I've had to learn that. I mean, this after 30 some years on campus with staffs and structures that are built around and for me as an employee, not having that has been a change. There's little things like I am sort of pre-packed for all my trips with toiletries. I bought an extra razor, all these things. I don't have to think as much when I travel. I just grab the stuff that I usually travel with. That's one little thing. It just kind of removes one thing out of my mental file cabinet. One of the things I appreciate about our firm is we try to stay every time in hotels that have fitness centers. I mean, and a decent one because, that's important for people that are traveling and our staff who are working nights on campuses, engaging with students or faculty and staff. So that's a little thing, but makes a big difference. You can stay in some kind of rhythm for exercise. Those are two things that come to mind immediately. I will say at home, I have a routine in the morning that is, I do go to the gym in the morning, but a cup of coffee, go to the gym, and then I start scanning. If I don't have a meeting right away, I'll scan higher ed news. I feel for me that kind of centers me a little bit I know what's going on today and I can move on to the stuff that's pressing. I don't know. Those are little things, but it works for me. What about you?
I have the similar packing system. I don't think you can travel a lot for work and not have your toiletries packed. Like it just feels like an
I wish somebody told me that before. It took me 6 months to learn that, but
there you go. If you all get nothing else from this episode, pack your double toiletries of everything. Be ready to go. I will add that I have little protein powders or different powders that I utilize in my health routine, if you will. So I've bought reusable Ziploc baggies, maybe they call it, but I'm pretty committed to finding the best little ways to pack everything. I'm with you on the wellness piece. A system that hasn't really worked out well for me is finding dinners on nights that I travel late.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
I don't know. It's like, Did I eat too much food? Did I not eat any food? Did I just have a glass of wine? It's unclear.
It's hard to eat well.
It is hard to eat well on the road. So I have a travel pack of snacks that I bring with me as well.
Well, and I think he was, really getting at too with systems that systems are designed to reproduce themselves too. And he also talked about disruption, and, he was talking about the systems that sort of aren't healthy. And then he was also speaking in the episode about being a little bit of a disruptor to those things. So some of these things that are travel related or home related in our new roles are also our disruptions to what we're familiar with. We have to learn. And then also, in some cases, people travel or do a lot with companies where there's a need to disrupt what might be the norm that don't create healthy conditions. You and I have some luxuries in creating the conditions for our travel, let's say, that make it a little easier to be healthy.
Yeah. And I think also, home is the interesting part too, is I've had to relearn systems, right? When you had to be in an office at a certain time, approximately, it was like, okay, so it was very systematic in the morning. Sometimes now it's like I get up and I start reading something in our article, and then all of a sudden I'm like, an hour went by. I'm like, wait, that was my exercise time. Now how do I do this? And so it's staying to your system that produces the outcomes that you want every day, both from a work productivity, health productivity, your overall well-being. Is you're in charge of your own systems. There's really no one else to blame for the systems but you. In the end, we're just in charge of our own systems. So,
right. And here's to creating boundaries and disrupting the systems that don't help your well-being.
Love it. See you next time.
Campus Confidential is presented by Compass Group, produced by Corey Inscoe, with your hosts Kelsey, Harmon, Finn, and Loren and Rullman.